Angry Architect, thank you for joining us. Bear with me for 1 second. I am going to go grab a drink, and I'll be right back. Everyone, thank you for joining the live. Sorry about that. I had to go grab a drink real quick. Daniel, Justin, thank you for joining us. We're going to get right into it now. How is everybody's weekend so far?
It's okay. It's okay. You want to pick up?
For every tiny Donnie that is donated, we will be making sure that gets donated to PanCAN, which is the Pancreatic Cancer Research Association of North America. Every like, every gift helps a lot. Jigaboo Johnson, thank you for joining us. How are you doing today? Deb, how are you doing? So this is how the hair's looking so far. Friday, thank you for joining us. We are in the middle of painting our werewolf that we started a few lives ago. Let me get out of the way so we can focus. Candy Pants, thank you for joining us. This is where we're at with it. Matt, thank you for joining. I'm really liking this how that hair's turning out. Now I used that, so I need to mix this up. So we're going into our final two highlights of the skin. Jed, how are you doing today? McAsty8, thank you for joining us. How are you doing today? Glitzy Girl, thank you for joining. So we are raising money for charity right now. Every single tiny diny that is donated gets donated to PanCan, which is the Pancreatic Cancer Association of North America. They do research on finding a cure for pancreatic cancer. Thank you for the follow. I appreciate that, McCasty. But yeah, we are raising money for cancer research currently. Jen, thank you for joining us. Like I said, every tiny diny that is donated instantly goes to the fund so that we can make sure that we are getting as much funds sent over to PanCan that we can for pancreatic cancer research. We are live over on YouTube as well if you are not following us here. Let's move on to that second to last highlight. Now, for those that did not watch the original live where we primed him, how we primed it was the light source is coming down from this side, and then it's just going to get darker on the other side. That's why we're not painting him fully one side. Dream big, build small. Thank you for joining us. How are you doing, buddy? It's good to hear. We are going to be going as live as long as we can today. So potentially, we could be done with this by the end of the live. Makia, thank you for the follow. I appreciate that. Laufey fan, thank you for joining us. Lynn, thank you for joining us. We are working on the werewolf that we started on our live a few weeks ago. Beans, thank you for joining. Dream, thank you for sharing the live. I appreciate it. Amy Brown, thank you for joining us. We are working on the werewolf that we started on live a few days ago. We're just giving it a little bit more texture. Your local raccoon, thank you for joining us. Let me grab a drink real quick. Devin Miller, thank you for joining us. We are going into the final stages of our werewolf skin and fur tone. Mr. Joe Freeman, thank you for the follow and thank you for joining. I severely appreciate it. For those that do not know, every Tiny Diny from here until December 31st gets donated to PanCan, the Pancreatic Cancer Association of North America. Snapperhead, thank you for joining us. Big J, thank you for joining. Big J, thank you for the follow. I appreciate it. Alex, thank you for joining us. I am having a pretty good day. Played some PlayStation earlier today. Decided, you know what, let's get in there. Let's knock out this miniature and go from there. That's exactly what we're doing. Yeah, Jay, I do get locked in on my painting. Like, I focus hard. There's been times where I've not even realized that I was even so focused that I didn't realize how quiet I was. Allentown trick or treating, very nice. Mama Scarecrow took Little Scarecrow to a trunk or treat earlier today. Amol, thank you for joining us. Amol, thank you for the follow. I appreciate it. Thank you for the likes, Amol. I appreciate it. Rookie Gaming, thank you for joining us. We are just finishing up some final touches on this fur. And then we are going to move on to probably the pants, more than likely. So we're probably going to move over to the pants just because of the fact that I have the exact green I want to use already on the table. Whereas the blue, I'm going to have to get out a deeper blue, a purple, and some other stuff. But here's how the werewolf looks. What I'm going to do, in fact, is I'm going to put him up here. I'm going to flip our camera real quick so we can all see kind of an example. And bear with me, everyone. My chair decided it wanted to take my charging cord. There we go. Colton, thank you for joining us. Just showing off what we have done so far. There we go. Yeah, not sure how my cord did that. Okay. Juan Manuel, thank you for joining us. So where was that green? Right here. Now, how many that are on the live right now are miniature painters? D, thank you for joining us. Faith, thank you for joining us. We are in the middle of painting our werewolf. Jonathan Redmond, thank you for joining us. Jennifer, thank you for joining. We are in the middle of painting our werewolf. Just getting the pants pin it in here. Lois, thank you for joining us. Gigascom, thank you for joining. Steve, thank you for joining us. How is everybody's weekend so far? Mike Kimball, thank you for joining us. Anthony Leroy, thank you for joining us. We are just in the middle of painting our werewolf here. Kay Lauren, thank you for joining us. Jay, thank you for joining. Kay Lauren, thank you for following me. I appreciate you. Mark, thank you for joining us. So I do want to mention to everybody that is on the live, we are doing a charity event every time a Tiny Donny is donated. That donation will go directly to PanCAN, which is the Pancreatic Cancer Association of North America. Eric Thomas, Krista, Leroy, thank you for joining us. One, thank you for the roses. I appreciate it. Clint Jones, thank you for joining us. Thank you for the follow. I appreciate it, one. Now, if anybody does have questions about miniature painting as a whole that they want to ask as well, feel free to ask. That's another thing we do here is we do help people that are either wanting to get into the hobby or just have questions about the hobby. Feel free to ask. Jorge, thank you for joining us. All we ask is that the conversations stay PG-13 at the most. I know. Thank you for the follow. Okay, so now I gotta pick which blue I want to use. That one will make the silver pop really good. Earthen Game, thank you for joining. Kenchufo, thank you for joining us. So what we're going to do with the metallics, because I know that was a question that some people were having earlier, is I'm going to attempt a process that is known as non-metal metallic. Essentially, with non-metal metallic, we take a saturated blue, we take a brown, or not brown, a black, my apologies, and we take a pure white. And we do continuous layers over time to give it a deepened color assortment, starting with the darkest gradient, moving up to the brightest highlight. And it gives the effect of metal shining off of, or light shining off of the metal. Golden Boys, Solemn Force, Dylan, thank you for joining us. So that is one thing we are going to attempt. Now we're doing it on this model because this is a model that we're not trying to keep it pristine. We're not trying to keep it as a model that we will be using. This is solely just for us to play around with, and it gives a nice transition. That's all for now. Thank you for joining us. That's the blue we chose on that green. Just Andy, thank you for joining us. So I think it was a good choice too. The one downside I see to it, as of right now, and this is purely from an artist standpoint, is that I chose too deep of a blue in my opinion. I think not really a powder blue, but a brighter choice would have also worked really well there. Misty, thank you for joining us. Because when you have a darker blue, what a lot of people don't realize is that darker blue on top of a black is really hard to cover up for some reason. And the darker blue you get, for some reason the pigmentation does not like to stick. But this is what we have. Now there is some green cloth that I can do at the bottom there. Bear with me. Now, the metal chain on his pants that you see around his thighs, that is all going to be non-metallic metal as well. Like, we are going to shoot for as much non-metallic metal as possible. Just Andy, thank you for the follow. I appreciate you. What do you mean that's all for now? Do you mean more like a silver or a gold, like gold instead of silver type thing? Yeah, so the chains are going to be silver, more rusted color, and I believe I have a rust effect paint somewhere that I can utilize. Let me check real quick. Yeah. So what we're going to do is we're originally going to do silver, which is just black. Where's my wolf guy? An off blue. And where's my pure white? Pure white. And I'll show you how we're going to do that here in a second. But then what we're going to do, we're going to dry or dust on the silver chain bits this dry rust. So you want to focus on where your brightest highlights are going to be on the metal. So what I'm doing is I'm just putting all three on the palette right now. The black, the white, and the saturated blue, which in this case we are going to use Wolf Gray. Jess Baby, thank you for joining us. Okay. So first and foremost, we're going to start with our darkest color, our black. Let me turn this up again. So what I'm just going to do is anywhere that I think would have the darkest recesses, I'm just going to hit those real quick. And that's part of the reason why we began working with what's the word I'm looking for? That's part of the reason why we did begin this project with a zenithal highlight. Just to pinpoint those darkest areas. Because sometimes that very dark area is going to already be there from the zenithal. Frank LT, thank you for joining us. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that black and I'm going to mix in some of that off blue. And I'm going to put this on majority. Of all this metal. Even where it's white. There's a reason for that. We're not trying to be clean. We're just leaving scratch marks everywhere. So the off blue gives it more of a shimmer than going from white to gray to blue. So like as you can see right there, that would be like if it was a shadowed recess. And that's not the lowest we're gonna, or that's not the darkest we're gonna go either. That's the thing to remember as well. We're gonna go as dark as we possibly can. And we're not putting this over the entire model either. We're gonna get it in the recessed areas that we think are gonna have the darkest areas. We're gonna get it into the areas that we want to make sure have a bright highlight. Ida Bell, thank you for joining us. Now the tricky part's going to be these chains because the chains are going to act a little bit differently. Same with the metal on the pants. It's going to act slightly different. Malachi, thank you for the follow. I appreciate it. If anybody else did follow while I was looking away, I do apologize for it, for not saying thank you for the follow. I appreciate each and every one of you that is following me. Okay. So, Watsy, I'm doing pretty good. So it's still a mix of the blue and black. So you'll see what I mean by that here in a second, because now what we're doing is we're adding more blue to that, but we're also adding some white. And remember, non-metallic metals is one of the hardest techniques that you can pull off. So we're painting a werewolf. So like I was saying, non-metallic metals is one of, if not the hardest. Yep, that's exactly what it is. You're lighting the palette until you get to that extreme, and you're blending that in together. So this is my third or fourth attempt at it. Like I said, it's extremely hard. Most people cannot get it the first try, and it takes years of practice. I know I was watching one video last night where the artist was talking about it and how he has been painting for 7 years, and it took him 4 or 5 of those 7 years just to get the non-metallic metal to look how he wanted it. Thank you for the gifts. I appreciate it. Divine Dragon. So airbrush, you're going to want to find somebody else currently. I do not own an airbrush. What I can tell you from what I have researched for whenever I do buy an airbrush, learn to properly clean it. 9 times out of 10, people's biggest mistakes with their airbrushes is that they are not properly cleaning them. Make sure that what you are looking for in quality of airbrush is it. You don't want to get just a cheap airbrush and say, okay, I'm done. You also don't want to get the most expensive one and never use it. Hey, that's even better. I would love an airbrush as a gift. So bear with me. I got to mix a little bit more black into this. A little bit more white. And yes, I did say black, so my pigment actually was all ran out, so I had to move up to the next layer. And I had to remix everything. That's good. That came with a small can. Really, the only thing I can think of when it comes to airbrushes is it's really a lot of trial and error. You're not going to get it all the first try. Just like this, you're not going to get it all the first try. I mean, this is what we're looking at right now. It's kind of looking like it, but we are going to have to add more depth and more layer to it, more white to bring out that metal. Yeah, I'm also not very familiar with them. I do all of my painting by hand. Eventually, I want to get one. This way, I can practice and get better. Um, because everyone keeps saying, get an airbrush, get an airbrush. I do know that if you do not utilize the correct paint, it will ruin your airbrush. What I mean by that is if you're not thinning down your paints enough, you're going to run into it to where you have made it nigh impossible for you to utilize it because it's just going to get clogged every few pulses. And like I said, this is not turning out exactly how I like it, but it's something. So Jesus is number one. We actually do not allow that type of conversation here. So be gone. Big Daddy Dragon, thank you for joining. What do you mean do? How are you doing, Dragon? I will have to double check. I do not believe it did. It does take a long time to learn. It's just like with non-metallic metals. I mean, this takes a long time to learn. I mean, that doesn't really look like metal, but it's slowly getting there because you can see the highlights and where everything's gradually going to the next row. Nothing wrong with doing some laundry. Pretty much. And I mean, I'm aware it's pretty much becoming the blue. So I could really just start adding white purely to this mixture. The thing that I despise about non-metallic metal the most is wet blending. I am not skilled at it at all. So if you're wanting a glow effect, I do not have the figure with me. Let me think if I can figure out one that's actually primed. You got one? No, you do not. So if you want a glow effect, I'll use this as an example. Where's my red? I'll put down some dragon red real quick. So let's say that this right here is where you want to glow, this panel right here. You would paint that panel exactly how you want it. And let's say the rest of the surrounding area is black because you primed black. I'm going to have to let this dry for a second. But you'll see what I'm talking about in a second. So, what you're going to do is you're actually going to softly dry brush. Grab the wrong brush. White. And you can use an airbrush or whatever you have lying around. But you're going to dry brush. And it's going to mix the black because it's not dry. But you get the idea. You're going to dry brush around that. I don't know why that's showing up as black or brown and not white. But you're going to dry brush the white around it. And then you're going to hit that with the glow effect. Devin, thank you for the follow. Now, it's easier to do it with an airbrush. I will say that. And here's why. So with an airbrush, you can easily guide it wherever you want that to go. If you want that airbrush to solely be in that area, then you're good there. What I mean by that is if you want, say, I just realized I didn't do the pants in a while. That's fine, we can just do this. You have a good day, Dragon. You have better control around it. Is what I was trying to say. Now, when I do a glow effect, like say there's lettering that I want to glow and it's etched into the figure, I ink by taking the paint and dragging it through the inside, and then I dry brush that color on the outside, but I thin it down with a white first. So let's say it's stone. I got the stone color gray. The inside is blue. I then dry brush around every letter white, and then I dry brush again once that's dry, blue. Does that kind of make sense, Turn to Dust? Now, once again, that's if it's like on stone or something. It does get difficult to tell what you are, unless I knew exactly what you were doing. It does get difficult. But this is what we got going on so far. No, I use pure white. Anytime I do it, I use pure white. The reason being is because I've noticed that like mummy robes, which is perfect for like eyes and everything else, it actually dilutes the color. Like right now, I'm using a pure white. I rarely use pure white for anything. If you want to discuss Necrons, I want to say it is Jordy. I think he's the one that I know that does Necrons on a daily basis. He does really good work. And he's very knowledgeable. He'll be able to assist you well there. This is what we got going on. It's not the best, but it's good practice. Now I just got to figure out how I want to do like, okay, perfect example for mummy robes right here. So mummy robes I use on wrappings or anything that is going to be holding an arm in place or something to an arm like that. Which is funny because this arm actually is a full gauntlet that he slides in. Now, I'm going to try these colors for the bells. I'm not sure if this will pull off the gold look that I'm looking for, but we're going to try. No clue. I bought this as it is, and that's just what was on him. Was some bells. But yeah, I don't know if he's a pet or what. It came with bells. That's all I know. For all I know, he could have just been a guard that their position required them to wear bells. And then once they realized that they had the bells on, they got bit by a werewolf in turn. Who knows? But there we go. He's done. I'm going to have to get more figures that have metal to do non-metal metallics on. I'm going to have to do a lot of research because I'm not a fan of how that looks. So I'm definitely going to have to either look into it or just not do them because me personally, I know a lot of people think non-metal metallics looks amazing. I personally don't. So not really. I would have to strip him, and since we already based him and glued him on, there's really no way to strip him. Um, so that's the thing, is once you base a miniature, you're pretty much locked into it. Now, like something like this, I could strip this and go back and redo that. But that is asking a lot of metal. And also, like I said, a lot of people tend to. This is just a piece off Temu. Yeah, this is just something I purchased off Temu, and yeah, pretty much it. A lot of my figures that you see that I'm doing, like the Werewolf, for example, Temu. Like I was saying, I personally am not a fan of non-metal metallics. I think on stationary dioramas where you're not going to be spinning it, grabbing it, and moving it, they can look nice. But on, say, a figure that you're going to be moving daily, not a fan. For example, if I threw this into my D&D campaign, the non-metal metallic doesn't make sense because of the fact that he's constantly moving, that light source is constantly changing. The only other thing we can really do now that he's done would be some NIDs. Or I can prime this guy up. The only issue is this is going to be a pain, and I'll show you why. So, let me grab my rattle can. Okay. Yeah, pretty much. But a lot of people tend to use it as a end all be all of miniature painting. Like if you do not do it, you are not that skilled, which is not true at all. Just because somebody did it, and I'll be right back, everyone. I have to go grab paper towels. I'm gonna have to wipe some of that primer off. Okay, I am back. But yeah, it's good on paper if you're not moving a figure around, or if you're just going to sit there and, use it as a display. But if you're going to sit there and have the model moving, yeah, and that's true. Necrons are all metallic. So your option would either be to do them all as non-metal metallics, or you would have to I gotta put this in my lap for a second because I'm gonna squirt isopropyl into it. Or Alternatively, you would have to what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, you would have to either do non-metal metallic. Sorry, I had a brain fart there. Non-metal metallic, or you would have to utilize regular metallic paints. And here's where I get kind of irate in a way with a lot of artists. We have artists sitting here telling people that just because they don't paint a specific way, that they are not good enough. Not true in the slightest. There are a vast list that is continuously growing, sadly, of longtime content creators who are essentially trying to mitigate who can and cannot be in the community. Now, I'm not seeing a lot of them here on TikTok. They're mostly on YouTube. So there's a difference. So you might come from the Warhammer community, but what I am referring to is solely miniature painters. So yeah, you're going to have gatekeepers in the Warhammer community of, oh, don't play that because that's not good. That's not really them gatekeeping you from painting, though. That's a little bit more of them saying, hey, look, it's kind of a bad idea to utilize that one. Try this out instead. See how you like it. Whereas what I'm talking about is we have actual miniature painters that are paid and sponsored by multiple different companies going out of their way to outright tell customers or people in general, I should say, to not allow them into the community. Solely based because they're making money off it. Simple as that. To them, it's not a hobby, it's a job. I mean, we see it all the time. We have several of the largest YouTubers out there doing this on a regular basis. And yeah, I mean, I am not a fan of them doing that at all. I get not liking a specific technique or whatnot, but outright telling others not to join the community is something that I've honestly baffled by. Hold on, everyone. I'm just trying to get this to sit right to where I'm going to have minimal white on paint on that translucent. Okay. No clue what a word salad is, but okay. I have outright seen. Gotcha. Oh, no problem. I get that all the time. So I've outright seen several of the larger miniature painters out there verbally tell people that are just getting into the hobby and ask them on lives, are you buying speed paints? And when the customer says yes, or the person says yes, they laugh on live at these people who are getting into the hobby who are using speed paints solely because they're new to the hobby. I mean, I may not be the biggest advocate for speed paints because I do not like them. I think exactly the same way that these other artists are, that it takes away from the actual art and it actually minimizes your skill because you're going to get so used to the fact that you're utilizing speed paints nonstop when speed paints are built for a specific priming style. Perfect example is what we just primed. They're perfect for zenithal priming. Because what they're going to do is they're going to get in those recesses. They're going to get down and dirty in there. Speed paint is the same thing as a contrast paint or a there's another name. Vallejo just launched theirs. I can't think of what theirs is called. Every company has a different name for it. Pretty much what a speed paint is. It's regular paint watered down to a wash, essentially. This is technically a speed paint. I could take this over any of my figures right now, and I'll give an example because this is what I was going to do with this one anyway. Let me pull you off there. Okay, because this is exactly what I was going to do with him. I was going to make him red. So this is a perfect example. Depending on how I want to do this. Yeah, I'll shoot it this way. No. So even right now, any paint can go right from the bottle onto the mini. You do have to thin down mini paints like army painter and stuff like that with water. But pretty much what it is, now this isn't an exact speed paint, but it's essentially the same thing. Now a speed paint would be a little bit thicker, and the contrast on the color would be a little bit better. But I'll show you an example. Oh, no problem. Speed paint is just another name for Citadel's contrast paints. It's really all it is. Now, depending on how you primed your miniature, like I said, if you zenithal prime your miniature, you can go straight from the contrast paint, speed paint, whatever you want to call it, to the miniature without having to add a single highlight. Because how you primed the miniature is already highlighted. That's what makes a speed paint is the contrast. So for example, let's say that I bought speed paints, primed up a model, and I got a model over there that's like a perfect example. It's just I don't have a green wash to show. It's pretty much the same as this. Only difference is the thickness. It's a little bit thicker. and the pigmentation is more there. So, for instance, you can already see that he's showing a little bit red. With a speed paint, it would look more like this. But it would show the darkened recesses. That's really all speed paint is. It makes it to where you do not have to go from the darkest layer up to the brightest highlight. So, like I was saying, I'm not a fan of speed paints, but I'm not going to knock anybody for actually using them. I think they can be good, but I feel that there needs to be a growth to expand yourself. Here's what I mean by that. If I painted just the bare minimum, because that's really what speed paint allows you to do. It allows you to use the bare minimum to get to the highest point you can. If I did just the bare minimum, why am I doing this? And that's pretty much essentially what speed paint does. It makes it to where you can get paint on the mini as fast as possible. Now with the werewolf that we did, there is some other things that we can do, such as the eyes. I just gotta figure out how I want to do that. Same with the teeth and the mouth. But beyond that, he's done. So we're gonna put him in the box and we're gonna show him off. Flip camera, pull you up. I'm mindful that everything that is metal on here is quote unquote non-metallic metal. I know it doesn't look the best. I'm still learning that technique. The chains look really good. I do like how the chains look. But everything else does need worked. This pauldron turned out the best down here at the bottom. But the fur came out really nice. I like how I did that, especially the hair. But yeah, I mean, we are going to call it a day here. If you do like my work, check us out on YouTube. Check us out on Patreon, on Facebook, Instagram. We're pretty much on every social media site. I think the only one we don't have right now is X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it. We do try to give tips as much as we can. We are doing the Tiny Diny donations from now until January 1st. And then we are also running a campaign over on Patreon, which will give you discounted pricing until January 1st. So if you want to sign up for the free miniature or the lives that are one-on-one, that's the best way to do it. With that being said, we are going to call it a day. I hope everyone had a great day. Thank you. Bye-bye.